Right on. Yep. So that's the transcribers picking it up and
Super.
everything. So we'll dive on in. I basically, I'll start by if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about why you think why is this interview happening? Like what's your like how did we get in touch and who are you?
Hey, Tom. So nice to be doing this with you, mate. My name is Damian. I am a crypto economist, and I trade crypto and in spot and futures market. So I came across Hex in around 2020, and the nature of the currency raised a lot my attention, I would say. Firstly, because I am familiar with Richard's work in the Bitcoin community. He was a maximalist and an OG since back in the days. And he influenced very well the community of Bitcoin, and he was a very good talker, I would say, at least initially. And then somehow he took 180 turn degrees to create his own better version of Bitcoin. And that better version of Bitcoin, which is called Hex, kind of promises to make everyone rich, like it's the perfect algorithm, and somehow he found out the perfect formula for making money. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about it.
Great. Okay. Was it Damien, did you say?
Yeah.
I appreciate you reaching out to me. And as you may have seen, I've had a little bit of trouble getting hold of people that have more of a critical perspective on Hex. So just to be clear, are you a Hexican?
No, not really. I have never invested in the asset, and probably I will never will.
Okay, great. So take me back to that time when you first heard of Hex. What was your initial state of mind when you heard of Hex?
Right. So honestly, as soon as I heard it, I thought, wow, that's the next Ponzi, the next scam. And then I heard that it's Richard behind it, and I was like, wow, I was even shocked even more. And what can I say, mate? Like I don't believe that the perfect algorithm for financial freedom exists. I don't think that there exists a formula to make everyone rich, but somehow Richard claims on his website that he can do that for everyone. He has banners everywhere stating that by Hex it will do that 5,000% X and stuff like that. So I don't know, mate. I was very skeptical about it.
Understood. And that skepticism, where did it come from? Did you look at the white paper, or did you look? Are you able to look at the code, the smart contract code? Can you do those kind of things?
Sure, absolutely. So from a first perspective, after reading the code, everything looks good. The only problem is that there is something that's called original address, and the problem is, or the problem arises when all the money or all the hexes unclaimed from the Bitcoin airdrop end up there, as well as the penalties, the late penalties. And the problem arises when no one knows who is the owners of that, who are the owners of that original address, of the origin address. And Richard doesn't want to acknowledge that it's him. He claims that it's not him. And based on him, if it does say that it's him, then the SEC will sue him. So, I mean, it looks like he played around the SEC, like he managed to avoid all the legal bullets that the SEC has created when it comes to the highway test. And yeah, that's what the white paper is. It's just a smart way of avoiding of creating a crypto by avoiding it of it's not a security based on him, essentially.
Many people quote the Howey test, and I understand where you're coming from. That's how you basically avoid your token becoming a secure or being perceived as a security right, and then certain regulations kick in if it doesn't meet or if it doesn't pass the Howey test. So I mean, I'd imagine the viewers of this documentary would probably be familiar with the term anyway, but so no pressure there. Talk to me about Richard then. You said, you know, you yourself, when did you get into the crypto stuff?
In 2016.
Okay. So you've known of Richard since back then?
Yeah, sure. I've seen some of his YouTube videos and interviews that he was doing. And yeah, so he was quite popular, I would say. Okay.
And a lot of the Hexicans I've spoken to have, you know, when I've asked them to take me back to that first time that they've heard of Hex, they often say, I've seen Richard's streams and his videos, and that was the reasons that they got involved. And often Hex is their first crypto investment, if you like. You strike me as somebody who, you know, if you don't hold Hex, then obviously you've experimented a little bit with other tokens or coins, right?
Right, definitely. So I would consider myself a Bitcoin maximalist for the only perspective that I do believe that for a token to hold value, it needs to actually burn a certain energy. So I'm of the believer that proof of work it's a good thing, and although many people believe that, you know, it's consuming energy for no reason, you know, why consume energy when we create something that doesn't consume energy? I do believe that without the energy, there is nothing that will actually give value to the asset. So that's why I would say that for me, Bitcoin is or proof of work, it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's right, because most they call themselves DeFi projects. They use a proof of stake algorithm, right? From what I've gathered. And a proof of stake algorithm allows for a centralized party to basically take control over the entire ecosystem that grows around that project or that token. And I think that gets to the heart of the question of whether or not one project has the potential or the design capacity to be a scam. Is that fair to say?
Sure, absolutely, yeah.
So it is a question of decentralization and the structure of the algorithm. Are there other signals that suggest that it's a scam?
Well, it looks like Richard is the central authority of this Hex coin, and though he claims it's not a scam, it's obvious to everyone that if he suddenly changes his mind and says that, oh, you know, let's call Hex, I don't know, like Pulse Chain, then everyone will agree with that, and then suddenly the name will change. Or if he says that, you know, let's add a few more lines of code here because we understood that, you know, the code is not perfect and we need to change it today. From my point of view, it looks that the community will agree with that. And that means that the project is not decentralized, and it means that the code is not immutable, and it means that that someone is leading it. So it feels like it's a company and it's not a decentralized project. So from that perspective, it's a Ponzi mate. It's not a DeFi. It's nothing that it claims to be.
Sure, and many Hexicans would argue that the smart contract itself is immutable. Often, if you know, the question comes up, if Richard dies or disappears or whatever, the contract will still crank along like it was designed to do. And so it is immutable. It is decentralized. Like currently, it's running on an Ethereum. I don't know what the makeup of Pulse Chain. I understand Pulse Chain will be a fork of Ethereum, but I don't know if there's some additional code elements added in. But essentially, the smart contract currently, the Hex contract, it runs on Ethereum, and Hexicans will argue that that is immutable. That code is immutable.
Right. From that perspective, it is immutable since it's written on blockchain. But what's not immutable is the community itself and Richard's gravity on the matter, I would say. And since the majority of people got into Hex because of Richard, I do believe that if he changes his mind about the project, or if he starts writing new lines of code, then the community will accept the new version of Hex as the real Hex. That being said, that they will ignore the old version of Hex, and they will somehow prove that the new version is the real Hex. And that will go back to say, that the project is immutable.
Okay, and I try to draw parallels here. Like, we could say Richard is a type of Vitalik, perhaps, or a Satoshi, if you like. That this is often this comparison is often made, isn't it? So try to highlight the difference there, because obviously Satoshi, he's managed to remain anonymous, or the group has managed to remain anonymous for the last 10 years that Bitcoin's been going. Richard went another way. He decided that he would be at the front of this, but he still runs a sort of he fulfills that role, right? And so does Vitalik to some extent. So let's talk on the similarities and differences between them. Those blockchains and those roles and responsibilities within the community.
Right. I would say no differences at all. Vitalik is doing the same thing as kind of Richard is doing. But there is a thing here that Ethereum has grown so much, and there are multiple projects hooked to it. That being said, that Vitalik alone, at least today, he cannot influence the course of Ethereum. Initially, though, in the beginning of the creation of Ethereum, definitely he could. So perhaps at this stage, Hex or the new project Pulse Chain, it's very much centralized. But probably if it goes on for the next 10 years or 5 years, and much more people start working on the project, then probably it will be more decentralized.
Right. Okay. Now that makes perfect sense, actually. So that what that suggests to me, that there is a threshold or an amount of time in which a project reaches some sort of certain criteria that the founding members no longer have this sort of OA status where they can just interfere and change things, right? So you're suggesting Ethereum and Vitalik now it's gone beyond him, regardless of how many Ethereum he holds. The rug pull stuff is irrelevant at this stage, or like, I'm trying to, they are the Hexicans.
I would say that Vitalik, he can influence the price. Like, for example, if he starts dumping all his Ethereum, probably the price will drop. I don't believe. I think he can also influence members of the community, but let alone, I don't think that his voice today is so strong as it was 3 years ago. But when it comes to the Hex case, we don't know how much Hex Richard holds. We don't know who holds the origin address, and that's very sketchy by itself. So that's why it's much more centralized than Ethereum, for example.
Okay, and today I have been trying to find victims. People dismiss Hex often as a scam right off the bat. I haven't actually found any victims yet. I've only found very jolly people, a variety of jolly people, some that are extremely ecstatic. I guess they got in early or whatever. And others that are like just sort of, plodding along and hoping that their 15-year, the 15-year stake will enrich them further down the road. I guess like, as long as people are being happy about it, or like, I can't find any victims. That's not to say that a scam might not occur in the future, but today it can't be defined as a scam yet because no scam has happened, right?
Right. I agree with that. There are no victims. No one seems to have lost money from Hex anyways. Why it can be considered a scam is because, although a lot of people have made money, Richard has made much more money because of through the money of other people, so like a lot of people invested in the project, and that's why he essentially made money, because he holds a lot of Hex, and probably he's the one that also holds the origin address. But so far, no one has actually been scammed because he hasn't exited his position yet, probably. So,
yeah, I understand that, but the man himself has, he's built up a reputation over the years, arguably 10 years, right? Again, I try to see this world from the Hexicans' perspective, or to try to create some balance here in this interview. And I can't help but think he has an awful lot to lose. Like his reputation within the industry is probably worth much more than any Hex that he has, because it allows him to launch future projects and maintain some sort of trustworthiness in an industry where there is very little. So why would he, same with Vitalik, same with Satoshi. Why would they do these rug pulls? Because it would completely ruin their status, which is obviously more valuable to them if they put themselves in front of the camera, for example.
Well, I really can't answer that. Like, I'm not so sure, honestly. So far, he hasn't scammed anyone. Like, and good luck with trying to find someone that he has scammed. Like Richard has said many times that it's not his intention to scam anyone. The problem is with the origin address, I would say. If he would burn the tokens, or if he wouldn't have access to it, I guess Hex could be like any other DeFi project. But as long as he holds access to the origin address, or someone holds access, then it has a flag for a potential scam Ponzi. And you never know what he can do with it. Like, maybe one day he gets drunk, or maybe someone robs him, and maybe one day he will say, oh, they robbed me and they put a gun on my head, and they asked for the origin address and I had to give it because otherwise I would die. And the community will then, what can you say? Like, let the man die? Obviously not. So you don't know what's the real reason behind it. Like, you can never know what someone is thinking.
Yeah, I've actually heard one of my previous interviews. The guy suggested that Richard has reintroduced the trust element into a supposedly trustless system, right? Because of this. But I've looked at a hell of a lot of projects, and honestly, I think a lot of DeFi projects actually have origin addresses that are maintained by like an individual entity or a corporation. So it's not like Richard is the only one. If he is the OA, it's not the only project. Actually, a large portion of the projects today that call themselves DeFi, decentralized finance services, what have you, they're very centralized, right?
Right. Well, as from my point of view, as long as they hold access to the origin address, they are not decentralized.
Exactly. So how are they allowed to continue to claim this title, DeFi? You know, it's ridiculous.
Well, I would say that because the Howey test was written back in the God knows when, you know, it doesn't apply, or it needs a refresh, I would say. And with the current tech, we managed to find a way to bypass certain bullets of the Howey test. And that's what not only Richard apparently is doing, but many other projects. But it doesn't mean that the project is decentralized because it passes the Howey test. A decentralized project means that it doesn't have a central point of failure. And as long as Richard is leading the project, as long as someone holds access to the OA, then it means that there is a central point of failure. And that central point of failure is someone dumping the coins. When it comes to Bitcoin, we don't know if Satoshi is alive or if he is planning to dump his coins. But the market at this point has such liquidity that even if it dumps the coins, probably, you know, the market will start sucking it up. It might dump a bit. It will definitely create some pressure on the market, but it looks like Bitcoin is, you know, the liquidity of Bitcoin is strong enough to actually suck it up.
I don't know if you're familiar. There is a bunch of websites that collect, you know, CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, Nomics. So Nomics is the favorite of the Hexicans because they claim that it lists them at third place where they belong. And actually, you know, it was suggested to me to look at Etherscan, and Etherscan also shows them in third place. And I think a lot more people put trust in Etherscan than many of the other sites. So there was a lawsuit brought, or there is being right now, by some people, members of the Hexican community, against Binance, who are the owners of CoinMarketCap, for not listing them accurately on their website. Now, this is interesting for two reasons. One being the fact that Richard constantly talks about vanity metrics. Market cap is irrelevant because I can, you know, I can inflate it. It's very easy to manipulate. It's a useless, he calls it a vanity metric. With that, is that a line? Like, would you put similar value on such numbers? And if so, why would they bring such a case if the number was just a vanity number? You know, why does it matter?
Right. It's a bit controversial, I would say, honestly. For starters, I would say, Tom, that you have to look at the market cap of a coin because there is it's a way of metric. Like, you can measure how much money has been invested in the project. So, for example, when you say that Hex has 200 billion of USD behind it, then it means that, you know, a lot of money has a lot of people have put a trust and money in the project. The question arises if the metric of that market capital is genuine, and obviously we don't know that, and no one can prove that it's genuine. Now, when it comes to the lawsuit, it makes sense to sue them. Why? Because they want to be on the third spot, while CoinMarketCap shows them on the 200 spot. When it comes to Nomics, I believe that, you know, as a business owner, he would be like, he wants the attention. So why not list a token? You know, why not list Hex on the third position when you know that you have so many people asking for it? So since Nomics, it's not as huge or as big as CoinMarketCapital, I believe that, you know, he wants to have a niche product that will attract much more clicks. And from that perspective, Hex, it's one of them. When it comes to the lawsuit, I don't know. Maybe that's why Richard himself didn't actually sue Binance or CMC. Maybe that's why members of the community sued them, so that he doesn't contradict what he's actually saying.
Yeah, right. And honestly, I don't think, like, as I've understood it from watching a lot of Richard's streams, like he calls them vanity metrics. They are irrelevant to him because he believes that everybody locks their hex for 15 years, and the price fluctuations and stuff and trading. He always suggests trading, is a mug's game. It's a way for them to take money off you. He always talks about centralized exchanges being, completely antithesis to the crypto economy. And yet, the community themselves obviously value these numbers and value this data in some way. I recently spoke to a guy who, a lot of people on the opposition for some reason or other want to remain anonymous, fine, whatever. But he drew my attention to an address. Anybody can see this on Etherscan, and it basically, what it's done is it's inflated the numbers. If you go to Etherscan now, it looks like 250,000 addresses own hex, but this guy showed me a historical chart or set of data that suggested 170,000 of those, which is, a good 60-70% of those addresses were airdropped or sent 101 hex, I think it was, whether they liked it or not. And he suggested that was a way to inflate this, again, to manipulate these vanity metrics. It's that simple. It's right. Not like a good trader will look at volume, right? What was the volume traded today? Not how many people have hex, because a lot of those addresses don't even seem to want it because they haven't moved. And also, you can automatically generate thousands of addresses these days. So, like, sure. Can you talk on that?
Sure. Probably the reason that, if he did that, and if no one owns these addresses, or if he just send it for free to everyone, probably it's because he wanted to raise attention. Like, there are people that will sort the ranking of coins based on market cap, and there are other people that will sort based on how many active addresses there are. Because they believe, that probably if there are many addresses on the game, then it means that there are many holders. So it means that, the network is bigger. So probably it has a larger potential, I would say. So, one potential reason that he could have done that is this, that, he wanted actually Hex to rank first in terms of active addresses. And that's very a smart way of doing business, I would say, because we saw, I think, on Shiba Coin, the same marketing approach. Like they kind of airdropped a lot of money to various addresses and stuff like that. So, when you wake up one morning and you see, oh, you have like 100 hex on your wallet, then you're gonna go on Nomics or CoinMarketCap and you're gonna search what is hex. So, it will raise clicks.
It's a marketing exercise.
Sure.
But does it directly impact the data on, like, I'm trying to understand why, Binance, who own CoinMarketCap, I don't know who owns CoinGecko, they've made a decision somewhere there that these numbers are reflected, they put them at this rank, not at number 3. Etherscan is, as I understand it, Etherscan is just working on the raw data that's available on blockchain. There is, I believe that's accurate. I don't know. I don't believe that it's a corporation. I think it's a block explorer, right?
Right.
So it only shows the raw data, which can obviously be manipulated. But Etherscan, like forget all the companies that run all the aggregator sites for a second. Etherscan puts them at number three. And obviously we've discussed that before. That data is easy to manipulate.
Right.
So my question is, like, what's the train of thought for either CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko or any of the others that decided that they don't belong at position 3? Take me down that train of thought if you can.
I believe that they want to protect investors, I would say, and as long as they are not confident and as long as they know that, this data can be manipulated, they decided to play it safe and to somehow put an asterisk on the project and, not have it on, on top of the chain. And obviously, since Hex is not actually listed on any centralized exchanges, it's really hard to figure out how much money has been locked on Hex. So I guess CoinMarketCap wants to protect, their millions of viewers. Because on the other side, although on the eyes of the law, Hex might win the lawsuit, because based on what CoinMarketCap claims and based on Etherscan, Hex should be on number 3 or 4. But on the other side, it can be very responsible for CoinMarketCap to add a project that that is not genuine when it comes to the market cap, which the majority of the traders would look at.
Okay, so, and this is obviously why Richard hates centralized exchanges, because even aggregators, whatever, any centralized interference. He prefers to be able to write the data straight to the blockchain and have it presented as he wishes. So, okay, that's very, very interesting, because that allows us to, assume 6 months down the line, 12 months down the line, when this lawsuit is over, actually it's going to come down to the defense is going to be, obviously, we wanted to protect our investors from this or this potential outcome. And
right.
That's understandable for an exchange, but it's not understandable for an aggregator site that just lists, because an aggregator site, I don't know. You have to check. I'll have to check this, but I don't believe they are legally responsible. They're just they're an aggregator. They just show the data like CoinMarketCap, and people assume what they will assume. But CoinMarketCap will never be responsible for an investor losing money because a coin was at number 3 instead of 200, right? Is that right?
Probably. I'm not so sure either, but probably you are right. Like, they shouldn't. I mean, I'm not sure if they can be held responsible. Probably a way for them to defend themselves would be to actually like creating something like Hex and prove in the court that, hey, like anyone can actually create a coin that claims to have 200 billion in assets and inflate its price and etc. So probably that's a way to defend against the lawsuit, but as you said, I don't think that they should be held responsible.
What is something that I'm missing that you would ask yourself?
Right. So I'm not really prepared for the answer, but I believe that a few good questions would be, if there are other people involved, like if Richard is kind of alone when it comes to development side, is probably maybe his family members or a friend of his or an organization that owns the OA. How many GitHub commits there are, if actively they keep developing the code, like they keep, I don't know, trying to discover bugs or.
Yeah, okay. So this is the idea that it might be a conglomerate or a group of individuals. I spoke with somebody in the know about, have you heard of a Gnosis wallet or a Gnosis contract?
Yeah.
Basically, you must have a bunch of people sign off on every transaction. Otherwise, it doesn't happen. And apparently that was the original format for the contract, but that it did not end up being the case when it was deployed. So it's
right. Another question I would say, is it probable that 200 billion worth of USD have been invested in Hex? And if so, why no one in the real world is talking about it? Because like if an asset really has 300 billion, like that's a lot of money, man. And
where are you getting that number?
On Nomics.
Yeah, and because I was taken to a contract, or what was identified as a flash address, a flash address, and it was sitting at just under $40 billion. So
no, now it's 161 billion.
Can you send me a link for that address, because I'd like to look at that, because the address I was shown, the address I was shown, that was he identified it as a flash address. It was called, actually, it's part of the Pulse sacrifice. Are you familiar with the Pulse sacrifice? Yeah, no. If you can find the Pulse sacrifice address on Etherscan, you'll see there's 40 billion worth of hex that's been flushed into it or something. So I'm still trying to get my head around it. I don't know where are you getting this number from?
Nomics.com.
Yeah, no, I think honestly I've realized that Etherscan is probably the best place to do a data analysis, purely because I understand it's a block explorer, right?
Sure.
Yeah, it's not a company running some sort of front end, which most crypto people would distrust, as far as I understand.
Right. Probably it's because I'm seeing the fully diluted market cap.
Right. Okay.
Not the circulating supply market cap. But my point is that, if someone can sue CoinMarketCap based on the volume, they should be higher based on volume. Equally, someone can sue Nomics for actually, showing Hex, with the fully diluted market cap of 161 billion. While Ethereum is at only almost for 500 billion. Based on Nomics, so based on Nomics, Ethereum has half the market cap of Bitcoin.
Yeah,
so from this perspective,
that's a good